Good morning. Welcome to Conversations with Carla. Good morning. Welcome to Conversations with Carla. I'm Carla Harris, your host. Today, we are talking about affordable housing. For those of you who have known me for years, you understand that my life has been around the underdog, working with people who are entrenched in marginalized communities, working with folks who are really looking to move themselves from a government system dependency to one of self-sufficiency, one that is filled with hope, and one that is filled with great success. And in this country, we talk about home ownership, we talk about the ultimate house with the white picket fence. But for so many people in so many major metropolitan communities, housing is just not affordable. And affordable housing is still not affordable. So today, we hope that you will join our conversation as I welcome my guest, Daniela Pierre. Daniela is a Miami-based community activist, a leader in the social justice movement, and she's also a mom, as am I. She is a recognized advocate for affordable housing and home ownership, and she is also the current president of the Miami-Dade College chapter of the Association of Colleges, of Florida Colleges. She's also an executive committee member of the Miami-Dade branch of the NAACP. So we want your questions, we want your comments, so please join us and join my guest, Daniela Pierre. Good morning.
Good morning, Carla. Happy Monday, and thanks for having me for this very important conversation today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, I just have to say, can you believe tomorrow is September 1st already in this really weird, strange, crazy year?
I cannot believe it. Already.
Yes. Summer is over as we know it.
When did it start?
I know. That's incredible. So thank you so much for being here with me and having this conversation. We have been talking since July about being Black at work, and we've had a number of guests on about the series as a part of this series. And moving now into affordable housing and how it affects our community, our African American and people of color, low income, marginalized groups, we really have to come to the understanding that affordable housing is not affordable at all. So before we get started, I just want to give a couple of stats. And those things, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I am back here in South Florida. And I watched in Washington, D.C., how we looked at affordable housing, how marginalized communities, low or economically depressed communities started rebuilding. But what happened to the residents? What happened to the residents that were in those communities? When we looked at Washington increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour, it still was at least $15 lagging in the living wage in order for people to really live in those affordable housing. So here in South Florida, there's a similar issue. The greatest difference, though, is that the minimum wage in South Florida is $8.56 an hour. Who can afford that? And that's including a 10 cents an hour increase in January of 2020.
Correct.
10 cents. It's almost absurd it just hurts my heart to say 10 cents. Come on. That doesn't even cover taxes.
Not at all.
So what are your thoughts? So in 2020, January of this year, in the midst of this year that's really weird and strange, Miami itself. So we're going to talk about Miami, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Broward. And for those of you who are not in the South Florida area, that covers, or that's the broadest majority of the South Florida market, which most people think about only South Beach, right? But when we're talking about those of us who live here, so it says Miami released its plan to address housing in January of 2020. I guess someone needed to tell them that South Florida is the least affordable metropolitan area in the country. We're talking the country. What does that mean to you when you are fighting for folks for affordable housing? What does that mean to you that they've revamped their housing plan?
Thank you so much for the question. Again, this is a very important topic. I'm one to believe, based on my own experiences, that affordable housing is a very complex, and it causes for a comprehensive approach. There are many studies, many studies. The City of Miami Affordable Housing Master Plan was yet another one. However, in that plan, there was some inconsistencies as to what actual median income did they use. That's just one of them. And the median income is usually determined by HUD based on the average of incomes in that area. Based on the city, the commissioners questioned, right? They questioned, how did you actually build this master affordable housing plan? Off of the city's AMI or the county's AMI? And those who actually drafted the housing plan, they really couldn't answer the question. I followed that particular agenda item. Many people came up and spoke. I actually wrote an article about it just to see that the commissioners actually picked apart the affordable housing plan. There were some gaps there. There were some deficiencies there in the entire report. So what they did to kind of find some solution, they accepted the plan with necessary amendments and corrections. Okay. So right now that plan is still trying to work its way through the appropriate legislation while the people are still waiting for housing. Okay. I think it was a good effort on FIU. FIU has driven many reports as it relates to our housing marketplace. What's needed now is the activation and the implementation of those reports. We have the data, we have the numbers, we have the stats, and we have the people that are left hanging in the balance, waiting for these reports to come to action. So that's my thoughts when it comes to City of Miami Affordable Housing Master Plan. I penned an article in the Miami Times, largest Black-owned newspaper within Florida. You can definitely check it out there. I got some comments from some of the commissioners and from a leading housing advocacy group, Miami Homes for All, as well. We had them weigh in as it relates to that affordable housing master plan.
So I just want to look at some things, right? Let's get really down into this. So according to an article that was written by the Miami Herald, it talks about the plan addressing the needs of City of Miami's residents. So I'm quoting here. It says, the plan addresses the needs of City of Miami residents making 80% or less of the area median household income of $33,999. The median household income for the county residents is $49,930. Now, let's just break it down and do the math. 80% of $33,999 is $27,199 a year. When you break that down by the number of full-time hours that an employee works, that's $13.07 an hour. Needed, this is pre-tax, needed to live to be able to afford even at affordable housing. The minimum wage is what in Miami? $8.56. So even at 80% of the average or the area median income, they still can't afford affordable housing, right? So now if we move into the county, 80% of that, which was 49,930, 80% is $39,944 a year, equating to $19.20 an hour, almost double what the minimum wage is. How in the world can anybody live on in affordable housing? Can you even live in subsidized housing if you're only making minimum wage? What is this area thinking about? They're just flat out not for every resident? What's your
It
thought?
it would appear that way. And when it comes to affordable housing, again, it's very complex. So those numbers and stats they're using, that's the highest limit of the AMI. Most affordable housing programs do go down as far as some 40%, some 50%, and some 60%. Those who are quoted in that report talking about 80%, that's the max that a person can have earned to be able to qualify. When it comes to other affordable housing programs, some developers through low-income housing tax credits will allow different incomes, different sliding scales to actually come into those units and live. And they have different price variations as to what that particular individual and family will pay monthly. They will pay a portion, and then it will be some type of subsidy that's either given back by the Federal Housing Administration or other type of public-private partnerships. Within public housing, that particular makeup is a little bit different because individuals and families can make substantially less than what's already quoted.
So what do you think is hindering a strong affordable housing program, process, success in the South Florida market?
I love that. I love that question. I believe it's the political will. Number one, you have, politicians and leaders that will talk all day about affordable housing. They will stand up in pictures for it. They will take all type of photo ops, have all type of roundtable discussions, call for a report after report, but there's little to no action.
Yeah.
Then we have what I call perpetrators. We have developers that are actually not developers. They are builders. Why do I say that? Because somebody who's a developer is not going to come into an urban community on a block and just build a building and leave. That's what a builder does.
Right.
A developer develops a community. And that's not what's happening. So I think we have to change the language of who we're seeking to redevelop our communities. And I believe it starts there. The developers have too much power. They're connected to the politicians in more ways than you can imagine. They have too much power. And the people suffer because of this. So I believe those are some things that are stopping the affordable housing. We need to innovate. These housing laws on the books have been there for decades. They don't even fit or conform to the families that we have today. They don't even fit us. We're in the 21st century. These housing policies have been around since the 30s, the 40s, when they actually discriminated legally against Black people.
That's true. That's very true.
So we need progressive leaders to go in and rewrite and enhance housing policy so to be equitable and fair for all. And while they're doing that, we need to go ahead and reconstruct who we're getting to build in our communities. Everybody isn't building for the community that's there. They're building for the community they want to come there.
That's
so those are some things.
That is it. So another article says it's very hard to make an affordable housing development work, to make it truly affordable and still make it profitable. So, once again, we are putting profits over people. Now, I have worked in workforce development for 2 decades, and there's always a silo of employment, a silo of education, a silo of housing. You cannot have silos when it comes to people and the development of communities, because you cannot afford a house if you do not work. You cannot work if you don't increase your education. And I don't mean specific, 4-year college education, but training, development, skill development, people skills, all of those things come into play. So you look at a lot of these housing programs that say, okay, we're going to develop, we're going to move you out, we're going to improve your community, and then we're going to move you back in. Well, typically, the numbers moving back in aren't nearly as high as the numbers that you moved out. What are you doing with those displaced people? That's number one. Number two, then you move people into these home buying programs. But if you haven't really looked at the root cause of why a family can't afford their home where they are now, how are they going to even begin thinking about a home buying program? What's your thought?
Excellent points raised. Definitely speaking along the lines of home ownership. We have so many home buying programs that are in our community. They're saturated, they're everywhere. My experience, they're ineffective, right? And they don't really reach the people who need it the most. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 points that I see that are so obvious. Why do I say they're ineffective? Because they'll take you through this 8-hour training course, right? And you don't even understand half of the stuff, and you done sat there for 8 hours. Just because my credit is a 750, right, and my DTI, debt to income ratio, is lower than the 30, that doesn't mean I'm ready to purchase a home or qualify for one. Because guess what? There is a maintenance that has to be done with a home. That roof already is a $10,000 job. You already have to be thinking about that. And as I speak to people who bought homes over the last 10 years, they didn't even understand they had to be responsible for their own roof, the landscape, all the painting. That stuff has an end of life. You have to, budget for maintaining those things. So when I say that those home buying programs, to me, they're really ineffective. They take you through all of these as a checklist, but they don't really get down to the real issues. On top of that, those home buying programs are designed to not allow you to build wealth. When white folks get homes, they talk about building wealth. I'm not one to say that home ownership should be some type of commodity. No. But if others are getting homes and building and generating wealth from it, we should be able to do the same thing too. Those home buying programs, you can't refinance, you can't rent it out, you only can live there. And I get it. You want somewhere to live, you want somewhere stable to live. But at the same time, I should be able to do those other things with my home if I qualify to be that homeowner. So those are some things that I find that are very ineffective with the home buying programs. Hats off to those programs that get people into homes, Habitat for Humanity for what it's worth, and those other programs. But I think they need to enhance their guidelines of their programs. When it comes to these communities, public housing, multifamily housing, it's a big thing going on now called rental assistance demonstration, also known as RAD, where they actually say, okay, we'll move you all out, right? We'll make it better, and then we'll move you back in. No, those people get lost. They get lost. Right. They lose their housing. Families get broken up. The community is not even the same. They can't even come back in. And you know why those things happen? Those people get displaced unit after unit because there's not enough oversight.
That's right.
There's not enough oversight. There's not enough transparency. And when they go in to speak to the people that live there, they're not speaking to them where they can truly understand. I get it. You got to have a stake in the fight too. But at some point, we need to be able to reach the people who lived in these housing developments for generations. I mean, I've heard families say they passed down their public housing unit. Mm-hmm. How is that possible when on the books of HUD, they have a self-sufficiency program?
Right, that's right.
Within that program, that means after I have maintained, right, and elevated myself to a certain level, I am supposed to be able to get into a program to move me up, not live there for 25 years.
I know.
Not to say there's anything wrong with living there 25 years, but they have programs on the book. Money just sitting there for self-sufficiency and is not being used. People are not being activated. If you survey the people living in those houses, they know nothing about it.
That's right. Yeah, I know. So let's take a look. We got some comments here. So it'd be interesting to get your comments. So this one comes from Carla Graham. The concept of how they define affordable housing doesn't define affordable housing for the most vulnerable. So what would you say to that?
So according to HUD guidelines, again, which has been around since the 30s and 40s and 50s, affordable housing is when you pay no more than 30% of your income. Period. That's it. They don't even expand. There's nothing else to go on. That's it. But as we see with the income that's become very stagnant, 30% of $8, that's a lot of money.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And when your minimum wage is still only $8.46 here. Now, correct. I know Carla's in the DC area, and their minimum wage is $15 an hour. But if the person is still unable, so even though the minimum wage is higher, then that means the cost of living is higher. So it's all relative. It's all relative.
It is.
So go ahead, finish your thought. And then I want to go into this next favorite of mine of opportunity zones.
Oh, yes. And I would say with affordable housing, yes, here in South Florida, the Tri-County area, the cost of renting, whether you rent an apartment or a single family home, even a duplex, is through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, you have all groups talking about different ways to kind of combat that. But what it really takes is a comprehensive plan. When I say comprehensive, I mean you got to get to the people that are the most vulnerable. They got to be in the room, right? Yeah. You got to get to these developers to be in the room too. And I would say my message to developers today, if you're concerned about your bottom line, why you're not making the money when building, you're in the wrong business.
That's right.
You can't be worrying about no profit when you're building a goodwill effort. Yeah. What are you doing? That's not why you're in there. And we have all these incentives for you. And then you come around and monopolize the people in the community. Mm-hmm. You're not even doing enough good. So I would say we can all do better. It takes us all to make this affordable housing thing work. And until we make it work, we're going to have low voting numbers. People are going to continue to get displaced. I mean, you look at Abraham Maslow's law, the hierarchy, the pyramid. Yeah. If people don't have basic safety, security, and stuff, they can't do nothing. Nobody can do anything else. Let's be real. This is not just something that impacts Black people. This impacts all people.
That's right.
It just hurts us a little bit more. Yeah. But I mean, again, we can't do anything. People complain about, low voter turnout. I put on my page, I say, you know what? Part of the reason the turnout is low, not an excuse, but part of the reason, just imagine that family has nowhere to live. Voting is the last thing on their mind.
That's right. That's right.
Because the politician in there now didn't get them shelter. So I'm supposed to believe the next one? Not on my plan. It's not a priority for me. So those things need to happen for affordable housing.
So let's just take, so to me, the next part of this leg on this three-legged stool, let's talk about these opportunity zones. So opportunity zones, for those of you who are watching and aren't aware, opportunity zones are a federal program that allows people, corporations, to build in underserved or marginalized communities. Now, Daniela made a point a few minutes ago about communities versus builders, right? So opportunity zones are meant to build a community of retail, of housing, of parks, of businesses. So that's what is that's the focus. Urban or rural, there are these areas that developers can go into. So, how, Daniela, what is your thought about how opportunity zones, are they really opportune for the people that are in those communities?
When I think about opportunity zones, I say opportunity for who?
Right, that's right.
I am just baffled behind knowing, right, that our government can develop census tracts, right, to let people know, let the world know, hey, these areas, we just kind of just left them hanging in the balance. So now we're going to generate a program through the Job and Tax Act cut in 2017 to allow you all to come in and build and make profits. But while you're doing that, you don't have to make the people whole there now. Just build up some new stuff now, and we'll just take care of the rest. Really?
Yeah.
Really. In the state of Florida, there are 427 designated opportunity zones. That the list of opportunity zones throughout the United States, I think, is over 200 pages. Really? The government is proud of that? They should be ashamed of themselves because they have the data. That means they knew this information. They already knew what it took to make these communities better. And in 2017, they waited on some type of way to connect some type of IRS incentive, right? To kind of motivate these developers to say, just come and do some things over here. We'll give you a tax break. And guess what? While you're doing that, what you build in those opportunity zones don't even have to meet affordable housing requirements.
Which is why you take a new development, a mixed use development, and you put it in an economically depressed community, and you have retail, you have condos that are 500 square feet charging $2,500 a month.
Correct. And they can do it legally. That's a part of that. Yep. It is.
And even if you have a certain set aside number of units within those condos or apartments that they're building within those zones, the market rent is so high that even if you fall in the 30%, 50%, 60% of AMI, you still can't afford it.
That's right.
You are completely priced out of the market. So we have another question from Carla. Carla says, does the opportunity zones track who is buying in those communities? Are they looking at the people living at the community? I guess so. So I guess the question is, are the people who are already in the communities the ones slated to buy in those communities?
Not at all, because by basis of what the opportunity zones stand for, they don't have to build for affordable housing requirements. Not at all. Now, what they can do, those who are going to build for opportunity zones, can ensure that the people there have access to the jobs, access to build something they can't live in.
Right.
Makes no sense.
But so build something that you can't live in, but then when you have, so I'm not certain about it here in South Florida, but I do know in, you have the first source agreement in the Washington, D.C. area, and that is that 50% of new job openings have to be filled by residents. Now, new job openings. So if you're bringing in your team from other areas, if you're a company that you've won the contract, you're coming in from another community, and you're bringing in 15 people. So now you really only need to hire 4 people. 2 people is what you're required by law to employ from that community. Only 2.
Mm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just makes no sense whatsoever. So even giving the opportunity for employment is not there if they can work around the loophole.
That's correct. And again, there's not enough oversight in that as well. You know, you have also through HUD, they have the Section 3. Section 3 allows those businesses that are coming in those communities, they have to hire those individuals in that zip code. They get around that too.
Yeah,
So it's,
that's
it's,
right.
it's, a, it's a lot of things that, you know, are written to help advance the people. But then for some type of way, because there's no oversight, they find loopholes to get around it. And
Yeah.
we don't have any more time for that. You know, going back to opportunity zones, I remember I tweeted this a few years back, and I looked at the list and I say, wow, Miami-Dade County has 67 opportunity zone areas, Miami-Dade County. And I say, we got all the opportunity zones in the entire state. The state of Florida has 67 counties.
Wow.
We got one for each county.
That's right. In one county. That's right.
Yeah. You know, and other numbers, Broward has 38, according to the report. But just to know that Miami-Dade County has 67, we should be ashamed of ourselves. That's nothing to celebrate over. You know, we shouldn't be celebrating that, because that means in those census tract areas, those are deemed lowest performing in terms of income and so on and so forth. But we have allowed that to happen. That's year after year, year after year.
So we have one more. This will be our final question, and then I want you to give us our top 3. So you could probably give us your top 3 with this question. So Christy Gray says, will this get better? This has been a topic of discussion in Miami for years. I remember when I first moved to Florida back in the late 90s, and when they did what was it, the Liberty City Housing Project or something, where they
Liberty Square
where they displaced so many people and had no way.
Oh
to
no,
bring
that was
all
James
of
E.
those
Scott. That was James E. Scott.
It was
housing
terrible.
From.
So Christy asked, will this get better? So in that vein, in your 3 things you want to leave us with, Daniela, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. What's your thought?
Will it get better? It's going to take us all to make it get better. You know, and accountability is definitely one of those things that it will take to help it get there. I would say it takes the people to stand up and demand that people regard, respect, and develop housing, because why? It's a human right. Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights lets you know that that is a human right for all, without even race, color, creed. Housing is a human right. So that's one. It's going to take the people to stand up, to demand that, to own it. Also, we need to define a developer and a builder. We got to define that, right? And why does that matter? Because it all starts with the design. So you get a developer or you get a builder, they need to have a plan and a design presented for the community, not just for the politician. That needs to be some type of show and tell for the community. They have to have a stake in that too. Okay. Also, I would say we need to have more accountability of our elected leaders so they can activate unused, vacant, blighted spaces throughout Miami-Dade County, through the city of Miami as well. You got so many abandoned buildings, blighted buildings, spaces that's unused. Activate them. Activate them. We have so many philanthropic efforts. So they say, Why are these spaces sitting empty? Why are these buildings sitting empty? Yeah, some of them are privately owned, but go ahead. If they want to sit there, charge them a tax. You want to have a empty building, we're going to charge you an empty tax. How about that? And if you're going to have a building that's steady getting graffitied and all type of stuff, then we're going to enforce code regulations on you. How about that? We need to activate these spaces, put the pressure on these people. Then I would say, number one, we already got a roadmap on how to make this thing work. We keep asking to make it. It's already there. Yeah. The Sadowski Act, that's been around since 1992. Check it out. The state of Florida has an affordable housing trust fund that is matched with our documentary tax stamps. What does that do? Anytime a home, condo, or any type of real estate is purchased, proceeds from that sale goes into that fund. It's a roadmap. This man probably turned over his grave, knowing that that fund is not being used for the purpose it was designed for. Every year, year after year, they sweep the fund and use it for purposes other than housing. So those are some things right there. Get your elected leaders to stand up and demand full funding of the Sadowski Act if you're in the state of Florida. If you're not in Florida, have your leaders create a fund that's statewide and will be able to draw down funds from federal programs and provide technical assistance as well to make housing happen. We have the tools. They need to be enhanced. They need to be activated so people can actually have places to live. We don't have any more time for reports and studies. And what are we studying? Yeah, we haven't even took action on the last reports, and we paying all the money is going to the reports. People wondering why we don't have housing. Check how much they paying FIU and all these places to do these reports. You could have been housing by that time. Yeah. Wow. This has been incredible, and your passion is just infectious. I just love it. It is so incredibly important that we continue conversations like this. I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I think that you have just, we're going to get lots of views of this because you are just so passionate, and I'm so glad that you made some time to come on here and have some conversation with me. I really, really appreciate you and appreciate your being here. So thank you so much. Hang tight and let me close out. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This is a conversation that we must continue having every single day. Affordable housing is not really affordable for those who need it. So tune in to our next Conversations with Carla, Mondays on Facebook and YouTube Live.